welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with my August wrap-up. So I read 14 things this month, quite a lot, but honestly, you're going to see this is the most random reading month of my entire life. So the first thing that I read was The Boy Who Didn't Come Home by Melissa Albert. I think I talked about in my July wrap-up that I read The Hazelwood in July, and then I was talking about how I just really want to complete the duology. I wasn't really planning on reading it, to be honest, but then it was like a bonus little chapter in the audiobook I was reading. I did give this 3 stars. It was a nice addition to the series. Again, I wasn't really planning on reading it, and I don't think that it really would have made a difference had I not read it. But if it's included like as a bonus chapter, I wouldn't skip it, you know what I mean, either. Then, this is so random, I forgot to grab it. This is so random, but I actually read The Snow Child. I was cleaning out like my bookshelves. I decluttered our entire apartment this month. I was going through it and I realized that I forgot to read this one during my, I'll link it up above, my Reading My Childhood Favorites video. So I had this one and it must have just like literally got lost because it's tiny. There's also I'm doing the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge this year just for fun, just because I want to be able to say I've done it 1 year. I definitely already can tell you it's not something I'm going to be continuing in years future tense, but there's a prompt on there that's like, read a book that you read 10 years ago or something like that. And to be honest, I really was like, that was probably the prompt I was the least excited for, because I really didn't want to read any of the books that I've read over 10 years ago. I'm saving the chapter books from my childhood to do like a chapter book edition of Reading My Childhood Favorites. I've already just read all of the picture book ones for the picture book edition, and any when I was a teenager, I'm not trying to read a bad YA book again. So when I found this, I was like, oh, as like random as it is, I get to totally sneak that in for that prompt. So I did. I read it super quick, and then I used it for a book you read 10 years ago, because I read this like 30 years ago, so it definitely counts. It was cute. It actually was one of those ones where I feel like the parents reading it would have more of an impact on the parents than it would the child, you know, who's reading it or being read to. And so I loved it, but it was very, very sweet, and I definitely highly recommend it if you like have little ones or whatever. So that one was really random, but fun, and it filled that prompt. Then I read Adulthood is a Myth by Sarah Anderson. I have been avoiding these for so long because of the covers. I just don't, but the thing is, Sarah Anderson is one of my favorite like graphic novelists. Is that how you would read that? Cryptic Club and Fangs, like those are amazing. They're like, the humor and her style is just so up my alley. So finally I was like, you know what, I'm gonna finally just pick this up, and I loved it. 5 stars. It was not what I was expecting at all. It wasn't necessarily like a novel, like a graphic novel in the sense of you're following like a storyline, a linear storyline. It was very just like random comics, so each page was like a different comic, but they were so funny. It really reminded me of those TikToks, like or even those, I think it's like TikTok comments where people are always like, damn, like we're really out here just not living like a single unique experience, like we're all living the same life. It was just funny. It was interesting seeing those like universal experiences, and I don't know, it was fun. But her humor is top tier for me. I swear I think we're like the same person, so I love it. Then I did complete the Hazelwood series. Thank you. Hold your applause, hold your applause. I did complete The Night Country. What is it called? The Night Country by Melissa Albert. So I did complete the Hazelwood series. Now this one was really interesting to me. So I almost actually did not even finish this one. I almost set this one down and was like, you know what, I'm just not even gonna finish. Because it was so boring and so random, and I just didn't understand the point up until like the 40, it was a little bit, I want to say like 35-40% mark. It was a little bit before the halfway point where it really started picking up, and I was like, okay. So I ended up giving this 3 stars, but I'll say I actually think in the end this is a better book than the Hazelwood. The issues that I had with the Hazelwood, with the ending being super random and rushed, the plot not being super fleshed out, all of these issues I had, this one did not have. So we get a really concrete ending. We get a lot of description. We get a lot of detail. We get a proper plot that's, you know, fleshed out and explains everything, and you feel satisfied at the end, whereas I didn't with the Hazelwood. Vibes, I definitely think the Hazelwood was better, but actual, like, what's a better book? The Night Country is a way better book, and I was really surprised by that because I almost DNF'd it. Then I read Honey and Spice by Bolu Babalola, and this was 5 stars. This deserves a round of applause. This was God tier romance. God tier romance. S tier, baby. There wasn't a single part of this that I didn't enjoy. There wasn't a single element that I would have changed. I loved everything about this. I don't even have anything to say because it was like perfection. There's no like, oh, I liked this, but like, no ifs, ands, or buts. No, I love this. I don't even like, no words. No words. I can't believe I put it off for so long. That's my words. I can't believe I did that to myself. Then I read Isn't It Bromantic by Lyssa K. Adams. This one I give 3.5 stars. I did round up on Goodreads though because I felt like it deserved a round up instead of a round down. This is a part of the Bromance Book Club series. This is number 4. This definitely was better than the previous 2, book 2 and 3, but it did still like have the same issues that book 2 and 3 had, where you have this bromance book club and, you know, they're trying to get a girl and all, you know, the typical what you would think, but then there's some random side plot that's like so intense, almost like action crime thriller, and it's like, oh, how do all these people like, if it was one of the books, maybe I would get it, right? Like, if any of the books were gonna have like a thriller kind of element, this one would have made the most sense with it. But like, how do all 3 of these people who are all friends have these like side quests that are like so intense, and like they're like spies and fucking like like how is that even possible? Like, I would get if one of the stories was like that, and this one would have been it, but it's like 3 in a row where they all have these like weird plots. What I loved about the first book so much, why it's a 5-star read for me, is because it is so relatable in so many ways, and so books 2, 3, and 4 being the polar opposite is a little disheartening, but they're still fun. I love the character. At this point, I'm invested, right? I'm 4 books in. At this point, I'm invested. She could write anything in this world or with these people, and I'll read it. Like, I'm invested. But this one was a lot better. It definitely did pull me back into the series. Books 2 and 3 lost me quite a bit. This one definitely made me excited to continue on in the series again, and made me fall in love with all of the characters all over again, even after their crime dramas. Then I read the graphic novel adaptation of Hyde by Kirsten White. Why do I always want to say Stewart? I need to chill. I did a whole dedicated reading vlog on this, so I will link that in the cards and down below if you want to read it. So I won't talk about it a lot, or if you want to watch it. So I won't talk about that a lot here. But I did give this 2.5 stars. It was way better than the novel itself, but it's still just plot-wise didn't do it for me. So 2.5 stars. Like I said, you can watch that in that full dedicated reading vlog if you so choose. Then I read Long Division by Kisei Lehman. This was a ride. I give this 4 stars. Where do I start with this book? Like, where do I start with you? Like, be fucking for real. This book is told in 2 different stories. So you have your one story right here in 2013, I'm sorry, and then you flip it and you have another nice story in 1984. If I'm not mistaken, this book got originally published in 2013, and then this is actually a revised version that Kisei put out in 2021 when he bought the rights back for his own works and redid them in ways that I think he said he felt better suited them now, or something like that. So now how he said you're supposed to read it, again, if I'm not mistaken, is you read one side completely first, then you flip over and read the other side. I didn't realize that, so I was reading this along with the audio, and the audiobook is still the 2013 version, so it had me flipping back and forth. So I would like to say that I did not read this the way it was intended to be read. Nowadays, I read the original way where you flip back and forth and whatnot. So I do want that like clarified, that might have changed my reading experience. It would be interesting to you know, revisit this at one point the way that Kisei intended everybody to read it now, and you know, see if it changes my experience at all. But this, even still, 4 stars, amazing, amazing. This is at its core, through and through, magical realism. It is so beautiful. It is so vividly told. It is magical and sci-fi all at the same time. It is just so wonderful. The ending was like, you're not gonna get like a nice ending. You're not gonna get like a nice, oh, this, you know, it explains itself to the reader and it completely tells you everything that you want to know and need to know to fully understand and grasp everything you just read. Like, it doesn't do that. It doesn't lend anything to the reader at all. It's really like, if it bothers you to not have stories where it's like a nicely wrapped up little bow and you're like, this is exactly what happened and this is the details of all that and this is why it happened and all this, if you don't like open-ended endings, then avoid this at all costs, because this story does nothing, I personally feel like, to explain itself to the reader. But in a way, I felt like I was really frustrated after I finished this book. Like, I seriously was just sitting there and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was so confused and upset and like really took like time to try to figure it out and think about it and all this. And then I just realized, like, you know what, like, it's just not the type of story that would do that though. Like, it's the type of story where it doesn't need to explain itself. I don't even know. This book, I tell ya, like, I love it and it frustrates me all at the same time. 4.5 stars. I loved it. I don't know what else to say. Then, so random, but I love Bob's Burgers. And so when I saw the Pop Sugar Challenge of like, oh, read a book based on a popular movie, which I thought was interesting. So not read a book that's been turned into a movie, or read a book that, you know, the book first. The challenge is a movie first. And a lot of people aren't getting that. And there's been some fights in the Goodreads comments because people are arguing about what they mean. And it's very clear that they mean a book that's based on a movie, which is really hard. So I was looking around trying to find some, you know, that I might even enjoy, because I knew for a fact there was nothing like that on my TBR. Nothing like that. So I was trying to look for something that I would still enjoy. You know, I didn't just want to read something for the sake of being like, oh yeah, like, let me read this book that I don't even care about just for this. Like, I didn't want to do that. So I ended up just picking up a Bob's Burgers graphic novel, because there are so many of them. And I was like, you know what, like, it's based on the show, but it's also based on the movie. So like, technically, like, it fits, right? I'll still be interested enough in the story, and it's something that I would be happy to say I've read, but at the same time, it like fulfills the prompt, you know? So I did pick up, I think it was volume 1, and I gave this 3 stars. I read a lot of graphic novels, I read a lot of comics, and honestly, this didn't do it for me as well as I thought it would have, considering how much I love the characters. So the way that this one is told, and I'm pretty sure from my research, I've seen that volumes like 2, 3, 4, and how many are there? 5? Are not told in the same way, but so I might pick those up eventually someday maybe. But this one was told where each issue within the volume was the same set of stories. So I don't know how to explain that well. So in the volume there were 5 issues, and each issue followed the exact same like formula, I guess. So first it would be Tina. First, Tina would tell, like, it would be a story from Tina's fan fiction. Then it would be Bob's burger of the day ideas from his notebook. Then it would be Louise would solve some mystery. Then Linda would write like a letter to some company. Then Jean would have some sort of like musical. And like each issue followed that same 5, the same 5 stories, like the same 5, the structure was exactly the same. And while the stories were different, the formula was similar enough to the point where it was annoying to me. Like, it was kind of like, okay, now I know what to expect. And it was kind of same old, same old. I liked it, but didn't like it as much as I thought I would. But volumes, I might pick up volume 2 just to see, because I'm pretty sure that it doesn't follow that same thing. So I might like it better. Then Stuff Your Kindle Day. We have another one that I got off Stuff Your Kindle Day. So I'm trying to actually, like, in between the month, use my Kindle more, because I never do, and read some of the things that I get through Prime First Reads, and what I picked up on Stuff Your Kindle Day. Because I have a lot on my Kindle, and honestly, I forget about them, so I need to be better at it. So I tried to pick up a couple things. Okay. My camera died, but we are back. So the book that I read off my Kindle, like I was talking about, was Office Hours by Isla Chu. And this I gave a 1.5. This was not good. The writing itself was actually pretty decent. The overall ideas or concept of this story was really bad and negative. It was about this professor who blackmails his student into sleeping with him, and she literally is like saying like, I have to do this, but like I don't want to do this, and like all these things, and it's just, it was so uncomfortable, really honestly sad to read about. So yeah, I didn't like that. It was icky. Like it left me feeling really weird, and it was only like 30 pages. Like it wasn't even a novella, it was like a short story. So I don't think I would have finished had it been any longer, but I was like, I'll just finish it. Then I read In a Dark Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. Finally, me and Ruth Ware, I'm convinced we just don't get along. Her writing style and my reading style are not compatible, because this was not good, and I also didn't like Turn of the Key, and I also DNF'd One by One, and I also DNF'd another one of her newer ones, and that's why I went back to this one, because I was like, you know what, Turn of the Key was okay. I think I gave it 2.5, 3 stars. So I was like, maybe I just like her older stuff better, because I had tried her new stuff and I had DNF'd like all of them. So gave this a shot. This was also like 2.5, 3. So I think she's just one of those authors where I just don't like her writing style, and that's okay. Like obviously to each their own. Like she's very popular, so that's obviously just an issue with not the books being bad themselves maybe, but just like her and I not being like compatible, you know what I mean? So this one was just okay to me. I feel like it built up to kind of nothing. It was all over the place. The plot was really yeah, random, and a lot of things didn't make sense, and it just, I don't know, it felt like it all led up to nothing, and that just was so disappointing for me. So I don't know, I really didn't enjoy this one. Then I finally got a chance to read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, and this was amazing. 5 stars, obviously. I am not a big memoir person, so me giving this 5 stars is actually very surprising. Like it's very surprising, because I really don't tend to like memoirs. I usually don't even end up rating them. I'm not a big fan of rating memoirs or rating people's stories, but with this being 5 stars, I was like, I'll give it the 5 stars it deserves. It was so touching, and yet it was funny, and yet it was relatable, and it was so interesting, like to learn about so much of what she went through, because like obviously we're like around the same age, and so like I grew up when she was on like iCarly and stuff. I remember watching iCarly, and it's like, so it was very interesting to know what was going on behind the scenes in her professional and in her private life. So many trigger warnings for this, I wouldn't even know where to start with disclaimers, so definitely check them out for yourselves before picking it up, because it was very intense. But I'm so happy I read this. It was amazing. Then I read A Very Merry Bromance by Alyssa K. Adams as well, obviously, which is the 5th book in the Bromance Book Club series. This got approved almost right after Isn't It Bromantic, so that was kind of cool because I could just move on to the next one. I'm caught up now in the series, so the series is technically like complete for me because I am all the way caught up. I think there's only going to be like one more book and then maybe an accompanying one, and that's it, I'm pretty sure, and that's a maybe. This is a Christmas one, obviously, and I did really enjoy it. I give it, I think, 4 stars? Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. It definitely, like, just like the last one, like bouncing off the last one, it reignited my love for the series and the characters as a whole, but I would have liked a little bit more Christmas. Like the first one, the very first book, is actually very holiday themed, and you wouldn't really expect it, but there's a lot of Christmas, there's a lot of Thanksgiving talk, like there's a lot, and those vibes, like those homey vibes of it all just are what make that book so complete for me. And this one, I obviously expected kind of the same energy, kind of the same vibes, but we actually don't get that much Christmas, you know, like a little bit in the beginning, a little bit at the end, but throughout, and just like the vibes of it all, it wasn't there as much as even the first book, which is wild since this is the Christmas one. It was good, but for like the Christmas book, I definitely expected more Christmas. Then I have A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. I finally got around to reading this. This was on my read 22 books in 2022 list, and then I added it to this one, and almost all year I've been avoiding it. It's so short. It literally was the shortest book on my physical TBR, but I was just intimidated by it, you know, like it's nonfiction. It's a speech that Virginia Woolf gave in 1928, and they made it into a novel. Or they just bound it up, you know. It was amazing. I gave it 4 stars. I think that it's one of those books I'll definitely have to revisit, like maybe in each decade in my life, because it was very inspiring, especially as a woman. This is feminist literature. It was very inspiring. It was very, you know, it definitely struck a chord in a lot of ways. It definitely makes you think a little bit deeper in a lot of ways about feminism and what that means and what that looks like. And it is interesting, especially because since this was in 1928, we're in 2023, it almost nearly 100 years. And it's interesting and very sad at the same time to see the ways in which this has not changed. The ways that women are treated, the ways that women are looked at. There were a lot of things in this that I was like, oh, that's happening again, or that's how I feel, or that, you know. And it was sad that these things haven't changed over the course of 100 years. And she even brings up stuff about like, oh, in 100 years, women this, women that. And it's like, girly, let me tell you. This is a book that everyone always says everybody should read, especially every woman, and I do stand by that 100%. It wasn't like a perfect piece of literature for me, or like even a perfect speech or whatever, but it was definitely life-changing. There were so many highlighted, like half the fucking book. Also, how well did my highlighter match that cover color? Like, the aesthetics are killing it. Like half this thing is freaking highlighted by me. Like I loved it so much, and I do think everybody should read this. I think every person should read this, so loved that. Then we're ending on a terrible note, because the last thing that I read was Bridget Jones's Diary. And I read this, I know I just talked about with the whole like Bob's Burgers thing, like I don't want to read something just because it fulfills a pop sugar prompt. But I didn't have one for this. So one of the prompts was read a book that was published the year that you were born, which for me is 96. I don't know if you know this, but 96 doesn't have good books. The main ones are Game of Thrones, Fight Club, Bridget Jones's Diary, like Infinite Jest. Like there were so many books that I was just entirely uninterested in. And I'm already halfway through Game of Thrones, but I'm using that one for the longest book on your TBR prompt, because I'm not letting that one go to waste, I'll tell you that. I was going through the list trying to figure out what I should read for that prompt, and I was like, you know what, Bridget Jones's Diary, I've never even seen the movie, and everyone says it's better, which is rare, but everyone says the movie's better. So I was like, you know what, I'll pick this up. It's iconic for its time. I've heard it's really, really funny. It's a rom-com. I love a rom-com. It's pretty short. Like, I'll give it a go, right? Reminiscent of the time that it was written, right? So I was like, that would be fun to read. It was not fun to read. I gave it a 1 star. She was quite possibly the most annoying protagonist I've ever read from in my entire life. It was repetitive, and it was just, she was so complaining all the time. I don't really have anything else to say about it. I didn't enjoy this, but it wasn't even originally on my TBR, so obviously I don't feel any type of like disappointment. I feel a little bit like I wasted my time, but I told you that pop sugar thing, I'm never doing that shit again, because I'm just reading these random ass books instead of stuff I really want to read just to fulfill these prompts. So I don't know. This one was such a miss for me, but like I said, I'm not disappointed by it because I didn't have any expectations. So I hope that you all enjoyed this video. I know this was really long, but I read a lot in August, but like I said, they were also random, right? Also random. Because I'm trying to work through the pop sugar thing. I'm really trying to work through it, so the last like 2-3 months even of the year, I can actually just read things I want to read. So September for me is going to be huge in finishing off the pop sugar challenge. I think I have 5 prompts left, and I just want to finish all of them. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.